On Christmas Day, Michael deliberately turned down work to stay home with me. I happily cooked his favorite dishes in the kitchen. But when I came out, I overheard him speaking German on the phone. "Baby, I can't come to you today, but I'll rush over first thing tomorrow morning." A woman's voice cooed back in German, "Aren't you afraid Charlotte will hear?" A flash of contempt passed through Michael's eyes. Afraid of what? She's just a housewife who only knows how to cook and do laundry. How could she possibly understand? "Don't worry, once she gives birth, I'll take the child and reunite with you." The plate in my hand slipped and crashed to the floor. Michael hastily ended the call and asked me what was wrong. I forced back my tears and shook my head. "It's nothing. I just felt a little dizzy." Michael, worried, carried me to the bedroom and stayed by my side all night. But I didn't sleep a wink. With trembling hands, I scheduled an abortion for the next day. Michael must have forgotten that during my university years, I did an exchange program in Germany. Chapter 1. The confirmation message popped up just as Michael slowly woke up. As usual, he leaned in to kiss me on the cheek, but I turned my face away. His body stiffened for a moment when he saw my phone screen still lit beside my pillow. He frowned. "You should stay off your phone more. It's not good for the baby." I smiled bitterly and closed the hospital appointment page. Michael didn't notice anything wrong. He glanced at the phone and subtly curled his lips. He quickly got dressed and said casually, "Charlotte, there's an important business dinner today. Don't wait up for me tonight." And just like that, he strode out the door. In the past, whenever he had to go out for work, I would always wake up early to make him breakfast, repeatedly reminding him not to drink too much. Every move he made would affect my mood. I could never find peace. But now, I just lay in bed exhausted, his words from last night echoing endlessly in my mind. So it turns out the happiness I thought I had was all just a lie, and the man who deceived me was the same one who once swore to love me forever. Unwilling to accept it, I searched for Patricia's Instagram, and sure enough, I found countless photos of Michael. For 3 whole years, his frequent business trips had all been excuses to visit Patricia in Germany. My eyes were drawn to a matching profile photo in the comments. I clicked into his page and couldn't help but hold my breath. Just a few short videos, but it was the first time I had ever seen Michael smile so genuinely. In the clips, he affectionately ruffled the girl's hair and smiled as he told her they would grow old together. My phone buzzed twice. It was a text from Michael, reminding me to eat well. The old me would have been thrilled by his concern, but now I couldn't help thinking he had probably just finished his time with Patricia. Remembering me and the baby, he sent a perfunctory message, almost as if to confirm my suspicion. Patricia updated her status. The man who said he had a dinner engagement was now crouching beneath a Christmas tree, hanging childish ornaments. When he lowered his head, the red marks on his neck were unmistakably intimate. Mr. Koo said he wanted to give me a one-of-a-kind Christmas tree. Even through the screen, I could already imagine Michael Koo's earnestness and affection. But just the day before Christmas, when I said I wanted a tree too, he coldly dismissed me. "Aren't you a little too old to be playing those silly girl games? If you're that free, why not sign up for some prenatal classes instead?" Michael had always been a stoic, emotionally detached man. I was long used to his indifference. But the photos in front of me were like a blade, tearing through my heart. I was forced to realize he was never unromantic. He had simply never cared about me. What I couldn't understand was, if he didn't love me anymore, why keep up the charade? As my emotions surged, my stomach began to ache. I gently placed a hand over my belly and silently apologized to the unborn child. Now that I knew all of this had been a mistake, how could I possibly let that mistake continue? Chapter 2. At the hospital, I completed all the procedures. I calmly lay down on the operating table, letting the cold liquid flow into my body. Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face as I gradually lost consciousness. When I woke up, a nurse was removing the 4-needle. Seeing me get up, she quickly supported me. "You young people really don't care about your bodies at all. I remember your husband brought you here for IVF last Christmas. I saw him with you last month for a prenatal checkup. I thought your dream had finally come true. So why are you getting an abortion now?" I stared at her in disbelief, too shocked to speak. The younger nurse behind her subtly gave her a look and said with an awkward smile, "She's old. Her memory isn't great. She must have mistaken you for someone else." With that, she pulled her out of the room. but I could still hear their faint argument in the hallway. "What are you doing?" I didn't mistake her. It really was that man. I trembled all over, barely able to hold my phone. Michael and I had decided on IVF 3 months ago. How could it have been last Christmas? Panicked. I opened Patricia's Instagram and scrolled to her posts from last Christmas. Sure enough, her location was this very hospital. I love babies, but my body doesn't allow for it. We were thinking about IVF, but as soon as Mr. Koo heard the doctor mention the risks, he refused to let me go through it. I really don't know what to say about him. The comments were all full of praise for Michael, calling him a good husband. As I scrolled, I suddenly laughed. The cold tears stung my cheeks. In my mind, I saw the moment Michael found out I was pregnant, how joyful he had been, how he couldn't stop kissing my forehead. He said that once the baby was born, he would be the best father in the world. He said we would live a happy life together and never be apart. On that day, usually so quiet and reserved, Michael stayed up all night by my side, sharing his hopes for the future. It was the happiest day of my life, and I believed in his promise of forever. But now I finally understood, his joy that day wasn't because we had created a child out of love. It was because I had succeeded with IVF, which meant the woman he truly loved, Patricia, wouldn't have to suffer through it. I couldn't help but wonder, when he said forever, was he thinking of me or of Patricia? My phone buzzed. It was a voice message from Michael. I braced myself and pressed play, only to hear Michael saying he'd finished his business dinner too late and would come home tomorrow. In the background, I could faintly hear a woman's soft moans, barely noticeable, but I clearly recognized it as Patricia's voice. She was sweetly calling Michael's name. And not long after, Patricia posted new photos on Instagram. She sat like a princess on the sofa while Michael Koo knelt at her feet, reverently kissing the top of her foot, his expression filled with a tenderness I had never seen before. The punishment for disobedience, Mr. Koo has to give me a foot massage. Patricia's playful caption was immediately liked by Michael, but I couldn't hold it in anymore. I buried myself under the blanket and cried bitterly. In a daze, I felt like I was back at our first Christmas together. Michael had ended work early to wait for me outside the airport. Snow fell all around him, but when he looked at me, his gaze was soft. That was the sight that greeted me when I walked out. He walked toward me with purpose and took the suitcase from my hand. Back then, I truly believed Michael and I would grow old together, but the calm and peaceful life I dreamed of was shattered by Patricia's arrival. Patricia had been a student Michael and I sponsored before we got married. At the time, Michael said, "She's learning German too. She reminds me of you when you spoke German at the exchange event. It feels familiar." That was our second Christmas together. After deciding to sponsor Patricia, we got married soon after. From then on, every Christmas included her. Michael said Patricia was just a young girl in Beijing and it was too pitiful for her to spend the holidays alone, so he brought her to every celebration. Eventually, she even had her own room in our home. She became like Michael's shadow. He indulged her in everything, even bringing her to the company's annual party without telling me. When she failed too many classes and was expelled from university, I decided to stop sponsoring her. Michael and I had a huge fight. I was so emotional that I fainted. When I woke up, Michael was kneeling by my bed, apologizing over and over, saying he had been wrong. That's when I found out I was pregnant. Michael cut off Patricia's sponsorship and also resigned me from my job as a translator at his company. I had imagined Michael and I might have arguments, disagreements, but I had never imagined he would cheat on me. I wiped away my tears, removed the ring from my finger, and threw it into the trash. "Michael, since you broke your promise, I won't stay here waiting for you anymore." Chapter 3. After completing the discharge procedures, I went home alone. I lay in bed, dazed, for a long time before finally picking up the phone and calling my supervisor. "Lisa, is the company still hiring for the translator position?" There was a long silence on the other end before Lisa finally replied. Awkwardly, "Mr. Koo has already assigned Patricia full responsibility for the translation role. I'm not really sure about anything else at the moment." I forced a smile, thanked her, and hung up. As the screen dimmed, Michael pushed the door open and walked in, looking exhausted. He was typing on his phone, a faint smile playing at his lips. But the moment he looked up and met my eyes, that smile instantly vanished. It's so late. Why aren't you resting? He looked at me in confusion, a flicker of impatience in his eyes. I sat calmly on the sofa across from him and said, "The company's hired a new translator again? I heard the last name is Kim. First name Patricia. Wouldn't happen to be someone I know, would it?" Michael rubbed his nose guiltily at my words, but quickly composed himself. "Those students you recommended weren't very capable. I asked the secretary to hire someone else." "Kim, was it? I didn't even ask her name." "All right, Charlotte. It's late. You and the baby should be resting. I've had too many business dinners lately, that's my fault. But isn't it all for the sake of giving you and the baby a better life?" I held back a bitter laugh and went back to bed. Michael lay down beside me, bringing with him a familiar scent. "Let's get some sleep. I'm really tired tonight." Hearing those words, I felt a wave of nausea. He crawled back from Patricia's bed in the middle of the night, still wearing her perfume, and dared to say it was all for me and the baby? It was as if, for the first time, I truly saw this man I had loved for 8 years. Michael had no idea how tense my body was. He tried to pull me into his arms as if nothing was wrong. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I ran to the bathroom and threw up into the toilet. I kept vomiting until my eyes were bloodshot before I could somewhat calm the sickness inside me. Michael thought it was just a normal pregnancy reaction and rubbed my back with a look of deep concern. I pulled away from his touch and turned on the air purifier. "Our baby's being so naughty. Once he's out, I'll definitely teach him a lesson for making you suffer like this." I forced a small smile but said nothing. Michael finally seemed to sense something was off with me. The next day, he stayed home to work instead of going out for another dinner meeting, but it was as if my body had developed an intense aversion to him whenever he touched me. I felt physically ill. One bout of vomiting followed another until I was pale and weak. Michael, anxious, tried to take me to the hospital, but I shook my head lightly. "There's no need. Your fake concern. Your empty gestures, I don't need them anymore." Chapter 4. Michael froze for a second, frowning with clear impatience. He looked like he wanted to say something more, but his phone suddenly rang. A familiar voice in German came through. "Michael, want something exciting? I'm waiting for you in the car." Michael set down his phone, his expression relaxing. When he looked at me, a trace of guilt flickered in his eyes. "Charlotte, something urgent came up at the office. Will you be okay by yourself? Don't overthink it, I'll be back soon." I sneered silently inside, but kept my tone calm. "It's fine, I trust you." I forced a pale smile and turned back to the bedroom. Michael hurried out, not even noticing that he had left his phone behind. When I picked it up, the screen was still showing the incoming call. Michael was always careful, no name on the caller ID, but I knew exactly who it was. Smirking coldly, I answered. On the other end, I heard the unmistakable sound of moans and gasps. Patricia giggled and asked, "Was Charlotte not enough for you?" The sounds paused for a beat, then Michael let out a mocking laugh. "She's not even 1/10 of what you are." The moans resumed. Patricia's laugh pierced through the phone like a knife straight into my chest. I silently sent the recording to my own phone and returned to the bedroom. When Michael came back, I was getting ready to sleep. He approached carefully, gently lifting my hand, bringing with it the scent of perfume. Disgusted, I pulled away. Michael's gaze darkened when he saw my bare ring finger. "Charlotte, where's your ring?" I rubbed the spot where he had touched me and said casually, "I took it off during a manicure, it got in the way, and I forgot to put it back on. It's just a ring anyway." "You've never worn yours, have you?" Michael froze, caught off guard. There was no wedding, no photos, only that ring. But even that one ring, Michael had refused to wear. He said he didn't want people at the office gossiping about us. Now I knew the truth. It wasn't me he was protecting from rumors, it was Patricia. After a long silence, Michael finally said, "My fault. I'll wear it from now on. I won't take it off unless you say so, okay?" His rare gentleness only made me more sickened by his hypocrisy. "Let's have a wedding at the end of the month while the baby bump isn't too big." He continued, "I want to announce your identity in front of the whole company, so you don't get the wrong idea again." I knew this sudden gesture was guilt. Plain and simple. I frowned, annoyed. Michael mistook it for being touched. He pulled me into his arms without asking. Later that night, I heard him open the door and go to the living room. Peeking through the crack in the door, I heard him speaking on the phone in a helpless tone. I just want to keep her calm for now. After all, she's still carrying our child. Don't be mad. I'll come to you in a bit, okay? His voice rang loud and clear in my ears. It nearly made me collapse. So even this pregnancy I fought so hard for was part of his plan? In a daze, I returned to bed and booked a flight to Germany for the end of the month. When Michael came back, he gently stroked my belly and spoke softly. Charlotte, something came up at the company. You and the baby stay home and wait for me, all right? As the door closed behind him, I slowly opened my eyes. Michael, just wait for that so-called wedding and the surprise I have for you. Chapter 5. Since that day, Michael continued going out early and coming home late. Patricia's Instagram kept updating, showing off their sweet little moments. Meanwhile, I quietly prepared everything, just waiting for the day of the wedding. 2 days before the wedding, Patricia couldn't hold back and showed up at my door. Long time no see, Charlotte. She smirked as I opened the door, strutting in like she owned the place. She looked around with disdain and sneered. When you kicked me out back then, did you ever imagine this day would come? You mean the day you became the side chick? I shot back with a mocking laugh. Patricia's face twisted with anger. Her voice grew sharp. Just wait. Not only is your man mine, but your baby will call me mom. Everything you have will be mine. She suddenly grabbed my arm. Her long nails dug deep into my skin. Instinctively, I tried to push her off. Just as the front door swung open, Michael walked in, and I let myself fall to the side. But he acted like he hadn't seen it. Without hesitation, he walked over to Patricia. Patricia! He stood protectively in front of her, turning to glare coldly at me. Charlotte, why are you always so unreasonable? Patricia had to hide abroad because of you, and you still won't leave her alone. He slammed the door behind him, and the living room fell into silence. His words of blame echoed in my ears, but I laughed. I was the one who fell. I was the one pregnant, but all he could see was Patricia. That same biased affection, Michael had once given it to me, too. Back in my junior year of college, my adoptive mother had tried to force me to drop out and marry someone, so she could use my bride price to help my younger brother. It was Michael who stood in front of me and said I had him to rely on. He spent 2 years helping me break free from her completely, but only took 2 months to fall in love with someone else. What was once love had turned to harsh accusations. But it was him. He was the one who said he'd give me happiness. Now, Michael was no longer the man who had nothing, and I was no longer the woman who needed his love. Chapter 6. 2 days before the wedding, Michael came home. His expression was calm, as if Patricia had never appeared, as if everything that happened that day had been a hallucination. Charlotte, put your phone down and try the ring on, will you? Michael took out a ring box and gestured for me to wear it. I opened the box, gave it a brief glance, and shut it again without taking the ring out. It fits. Let's just go with this one. Michael frowned at my indifferent attitude. There's nothing going on between me and Patricia. Could you stop being so hostile toward a young girl like her? I looked at his irritated expression and pointed to the inside of the ring. You picked the wrong one. This has Patricia's name engraved on it. My voice was calm, but Michael's expression froze instantly. I couldn't be bothered to listen to his excuses and went straight back to the bedroom. When Michael returned later, there was a trace of regret in his eyes. He hugged me tightly from behind, as if trying to fuse me into his very bones. Charlotte, I was wrong. Let's start over, okay? Do you remember the wish we made when we graduated? Michael whispered endlessly in my ear, but I couldn't hear any of it anymore. That year, we made a Christmas wish to be together forever. But this year, he made that same promise to another woman. Michael, how long are you going to keep up this act? My vision blurred as I slowly drifted into sleep. One day before the wedding, Michael got up early to cook porridge for me. The living room was filled with baby supplies. He brought the bowl to me with tenderness in his eyes. Eat something to warm your stomach. I bought lots of clothes for the baby. Don't forget to take a look later. I nodded faintly, but my gaze rested on my still flat belly. Michael noticed nothing. He spent the whole day by my side, imagining what our baby would look like. That evening, it began to storm outside. Thunder and lightning filled the sky. Michael tossed and turned in frustration. checking his phone repeatedly. When a familiar ringtone finally rang out, he couldn't sit still anymore. Grabbing his keys, he rushed to leave. "Charlotte, I've arranged a driver to pick you up tomorrow. Something urgent came up at work. I need to take care of it." He shut the door in a hurry without waiting for my response. I took out the suitcase I had already packed and got into a cab. Michael's car passed right by mine. If he had just turned his head, he would have seen me standing there with my luggage. But he didn't. I wiped away the dampness from my eyes and rolled up the window. "Airport, please," I told the driver. "Michael, I gave you so many chances. You were the one who chose not to see them. So from now on, we're done for good." Chapter 7. 15 hours later, the plane landed. I returned to the university where I had once studied as an exchange student, this time as a visiting instructor. The school had arranged everything for me. All I had to do was move in with my luggage. Lying in the faculty apartment, I inserted my newly activated SIM card and finally felt at ease. By now, the gift I had so carefully prepared must have reached Michael and Patricia. I opened my phone and, sure enough, saw that CEO of the Cooed Corporation was trending. I clicked on the topic and saw a video. Michael, dressed in a black suit, was standing among the crowd, looking toward the car that was supposed to pick me up. But when the door opened, the person who stepped out was Patricia. She was wearing the wedding dress that should have been mine. Michael stared at her in disbelief, not yet able to speak, when the large screen behind him suddenly lit up and began playing a video. It was a photo montage I had personally edited, 1,000 photos in total, all of them of Michael and Patricia. The onlookers smiled with admiration at the pair, unaware of the truth. But in the midst of the blessings and applause, Michael's face turned pale. Once the video ended, the internet wasted no time uncovering Patricia's background. Her scandalous past was laid bare, and Michael's public image suffered immensely. I exited Instagram and opened the security feed at home. Just as I expected, Michael had found the wedding gift I left for him, a medical report showing my abortion, and a divorce agreement, already signed by me. On the screen, Michael gripped the two documents tightly, his eyes red with emotion. Eventually, as if drained of all strength, he collapsed to the floor, shouting my name again and again. I didn't hesitate. I shut down the feed and deleted the app. After returning to the university, I quickly adjusted to my new life. Aside from teaching classes, I began traveling, visiting all the places I had once dreamed of but never had the chance to see. In the past, I had poured all my energy into Michael, turning myself into a bitter woman, just the housewife he accused of doing nothing but cooking and cleaning. But I had once been a bright and ambitious girl, and I had achieved things in the field I loved. He simply never cared to notice. Now that Michael was out of the picture, I finally realized loving myself is what matters most. As I settled into my job, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years, Anthony, an upperclassman from my exchange days. To meet an old friend in a foreign land, we quickly became close again. We often went rock climbing and skiing together. Being around him brought me a strange sense of peace. Through his recommendation, I landed a job at an international company as a translator. During busy projects, even translators had to fly around. The client this time was from South City. When I saw her, I paused for a moment before recognizing her. "Lisa, it's been a long time." Lisa also froze, then smiled and pulled me into a seat. "Charlotte, what a surprise! I didn't expect to see you here." Her face lit up with delight. I smiled and told her why I had joined the company. After listening, Lisa sighed with a sorrowful look. Leaving Cooed Corp was the right decision. It's not what it used to be. After the wedding, Cooed seemed like a different person. He disappeared for a month, then came back and started throwing money into designing jewelry. He even launched a line named after his lover. He called it Charlotte. The shareholders nearly revolted. Everyone says Cood's been possessed or something. I listened quietly, feeling nothing. Lisa chatted for a bit longer before leaving. I finished organizing my materials and got ready to head home. It was Christmas, and the streets were buzzing with joy. I walked home slowly. Just as I was about to unlock the door, I saw a small box placed on the ground. Puzzled, I bent down to pick it up when a trembling voice spoke behind me. "Charlotte, I finally found you." Chapter 8. I turned around, and there stood Michael, travel-worn and breathless. Snow fell heavily around him, but a layer of sweat had formed on his forehead. He panted, eyes locked on me, as if afraid I'd vanish again. I almost instinctively went to shut the door, but Michael grabbed it before I could. He pulled me into his arms with force, clutching me tightly, as if he wanted to fuse me into his very bones. Charlotte. Charlotte. Michael's voice trembled, edged with the sound of suppressed sobs. Charlotte. I was wrong, I truly was. Please don't punish me like this. I can't live without you. Wet tears slid down into the curve of my neck. I turned my head away in disgust. I couldn't understand it. He was the one who betrayed me, so why was he acting like the wounded one now? Pleading for forgiveness? Does it really take losing someone to finally feel regret? Let go. My voice was cold. Michael didn't move, still holding me tightly. At last, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I yelled, "Let go of me!" Michael froze for a second before reluctantly releasing his grip. Charlotte, I've realized my mistakes. I swear, I'll never contact Patricia again. I'll do whatever you ask. Let's hold a new wedding, just the way you like, okay? And about the baby, I don't blame you. We're still young. We'll have another chance. Charlotte, will you come back with me? He looked at me carefully, as if afraid of my reaction. I stepped back in disgust, putting distance between us. Michael, did you see the things I left for you? I want a divorce. Michael turned pale. His body swayed as if he might collapse. Eyes reddening. He said, "Divorce? Charlotte, don't say things like that. How can we get divorced? We've been together for 8 years. How can that just disappear? You must have hated the wedding I planned. I've never had good taste. Not like you. It's all my fault. Once you come back, we'll redo everything just the way you want." He kept rambling like a madman. I couldn't take it anymore and cut him off. Michael, what right do you, a cheating man, have to talk to me about 8 years of love? At those words, panic flashed across Michael's face. He stood there frozen for a long moment before stammering, No, that's not it. Charlotte, I lost my mind. Just for a moment, but I've always loved you. I never thought we'd end up apart. This isn't how it was supposed to be. I thought after the wedding, we'd go back to the way things were, have a home, a child, a happy life together. Michael, is your version of a happy life just betrayal after betrayal? Watching me love you like a fool while I suffered through a painful pregnancy without sleep, did that make you proud? Michael flinched, his eyes turning bloodshot as if they were about to bleed. I didn't. I knew you were struggling, but if I didn't take care of things at the company, how could I give you and the baby a good future? Charlotte. I was in pain too. I clenched my fists and let out a bitter laugh. Everything was crystal clear now, and yet he was still pretending, still performing this pitiful show of fake sincerity. How many of your so-called business dinners were even real? You kept that couple's account with Patricia going, posting together every day for 3 straight years. You promised to spend every Christmas with me, but in reality, one phone call from Patricia and you'd rush to her side in the middle of the night. For 3 years you traveled with her, took countless photos, but when we got married, you didn't even want to take a single wedding photo with me. Last Christmas, you were with her for IVF, but stopped the procedure out of pity. And me? What was I? A tool to bear your child? Or just an obstacle in the way of your love story? Michael stared at me in shock. I gave a faint smile. That IVF baby, it was for you and Patricia. Did you really think I didn't know? Michael, I'm not stupid. Chapter 9. Charlotte. Michael's face grew even paler. His lips trembled, as if he wanted to explain, but he couldn't refute a single word. The snow was falling harder now, collecting on top of his head. Michael, do you remember what you promised me on our first Christmas together? Michael stared at me, his eyes empty, seemingly lost in memories. I let out a small laugh. He had clearly forgotten long ago. That first Christmas we spent together. Michael spent all his savings to rent out an entire couple's restaurant. I had never believed in things like forever love, but when he showed up holding flowers, I truly started to imagine growing old with him. Michael had always been a textbook emotionally unavailable man, but I was drawn to the grounded security he gave off. I never thought I would marry him, but that day, he knelt in front of me, solemnly, and said, "Charlotte, please believe me, as long as I'm alive. I'll only love you. If I ever change my heart, may the heavens strike me down with lightning." 8 years have passed. He's still alive, but he no longer remembers what he once said. Michael looked up, regret flashing in his eyes. Suddenly, I let out a breath of relief. It's a good thing you insisted on not having a wedding back then. Now, aside from you and Patricia, no one even knows we were together. Otherwise, it really would have been a bit messy. Michael stared at me in disbelief, as if he couldn't accept the words coming out of my mouth. "Charlotte, how can you say that? I only turned down the wedding back then because the company was just starting out. I was overwhelmed. But now I can give you everything. If you come back with me, I'll arrange the wedding immediately. It's just a wedding, right? We can have as many as you want." I grew impatient and tried to push past him and go inside. But Michael instantly noticed and grabbed my arm tightly. "Charlotte, come back, okay? You don't even know anyone here. If you return, I'll arrange everything for you, anything you want to do." I looked at him with scorn, as if he just said something ridiculous. "Don't know anyone? Michael, did you forget I studied in Germany for 3 full years? You didn't really think I couldn't understand what you and Patricia said on Christmas, did you?" At that, Michael's pupils contracted. His face twisted with shock. "I forgot. I didn't mean it. None of it was real. You were still pregnant, and I was afraid she'd come say something to upset you. So I yanked my arm from his grip. Fed up. If all of that was fake, then what was real? Your fake, insincere love?" Michael had no reply. He just stood there, stunned. I tried to walk away, but he said in a low voice, "But Charlotte, we've been together for so long. You even carried my child. Who else would want you if not me?" My hand froze on the doorknob. I looked at the face I had loved for 8 years and felt nothing but unfamiliarity. Michael noticed me turning back, and a glimmer of hope sparked in his eyes. "Just be good, all right? We're still fine. I won't leave you." He smiled gently, but all I felt was a deep chill in my heart. I could no longer connect this man to the one I once knew. Suppressing my disgust, I was about to tear away the last of his facade when a male voice suddenly called out behind me. "Is there a reason you're bothering my girlfriend?" Chapter 10. I turned around and locked eyes with Anthony. He strode over and stepped protectively in front of me. "I've already called the police," he said. "Charlotte has me now, and besides, she's an independent, capable woman. She'll be just fine without anyone." Michael's face darkened like storm clouds. He stared daggers at Anthony, as if trying to burn a hole through him. "I'm Charlotte's husband. Who the hell are you to say she's your girlfriend?" Anthony's entire demeanor turned ice cold. His tone grew even lower, more cutting. "Husband? Doesn't matter. I've already helped Charlotte find a divorce lawyer. With everything you've done, you're lucky you're not getting divorced 10 times over." At that, a vein bulged at Michael's temple. He clenched his fist, ready to punch Anthony. But before he could get close, the police arrived and restrained him, taking him down to the station. Anthony gave me a reassuring smile before following the officers to sort things out. When he returned, I was sitting quietly on the swing outside the door, rocking back and forth. My fingertips glowed red in the cold. My phone buzzed nonstop. I tapped it open to find a message from an unfamiliar number back home. "Charlotte, do you really think you've won? I'm pregnant. It's Michael's." I scoffed and shut off my phone. All I could feel was a pitiful sort of contempt. She was foolish enough to throw away everything for a man as fake as Michael. I took a small red box from my coat pocket. Inside was the ring, plain silver, with only a rough engraving on the inside. Back when Michael's company was just starting, we had nothing, couldn't even scrape together 2,000 yuan between us. But that Christmas was one of the happiest days of my life. Michael had spent half a month crafting the silver ring by hand. It was visibly rough, the interior carved with our initials in shaky lines. But I had loved it more than anything. Even later, when he proposed again with a custom luxury diamond ring, I still felt it couldn't compare to this simple one. Before I left, I had tossed it in the trash without hesitation. I didn't know how Michael had managed to retrieve it. But seeing it again, I couldn't help but wonder, how could I have trusted him with my entire life, for just a ring? The snow was slowly coming to a stop. Anthony handed me a bottle of warm milk and sat on the other swing beside me. "Thank you," I said. Anthony gave a playful smile. "I guess I got a little lucky, claiming you as my girlfriend." I shook my head and chuckled lightly. Anthony had only said that to help chase Michael away. But the part about finding a divorce lawyer for me, that had been real. Because now, I truly couldn't bear the thought of still being Michael's wife. Chapter 11. With the help of a lawyer. The divorce process went smoothly. Michael hadn't shown up for quite some time, likely due to the news of Patricia's pregnancy. It wasn't until I returned to China to finalize the divorce that he finally appeared. In front of the Civil Affairs office, Michael looked utterly exhausted. In just 1 month, it was as if he had aged 10 years. "Charlotte, can you give me a little more time? I'll settle everything soon," he pleaded. Eyes full of desperation, I brushed past him coldly, my tone flat. "Don't make me hate you too much." Michael's face turned pale, and in the end, he let out a bitter laugh. When I walked out again, Patricia was already waiting outside the building. "Charlotte," she said with a smug smile, "when Michael and I have our baby, you must come visit, okay? After all, if you hadn't let him go, the baby would have no father." She looked proud, like she had just won some kind of great victory. Michael snapped at her, clearly irritated. "Patricia, didn't I tell you to stay home and behave? What? Now that you're divorced, why do you still care what she thinks?" Patricia's expression turned dark as she prepared to argue with him on the spot. I couldn't be bothered to watch their drama any longer. As soon as I saw Anthony drive up, I started heading over. "Charlotte," Michael called after me, hesitating. Behind him, Patricia's sharp voice rose, followed suddenly by a loud scream. I froze and turned around, just in time to see Patricia, who had been standing on the steps, fall down them for reasons unclear. Blood quickly pooled beneath her as her face turned ashen and she cried out for help. Michael seemed to snap out of it all at once and lunged toward her. The scene became chaotic. Anthony strode over and silently took my hand, guiding me to the car. It wasn't until the car windows rolled up that I finally came back to myself. Anthony didn't say a word, he just quietly paid attention to my emotions. The moment I returned to Germany, it felt as though a heavy weight had finally lifted from my chest. I let out a deep breath. Life finally seemed back on track. Just when I thought I would never cross paths with Michael again, Lisa suddenly sent me 2 video clips. In the first one, Patricia sat in a pool of blood, glaring at me with hatred. In the second, she looked nothing like her former self, disheveled and lying in front of the Cooed Corporation building, screaming Michael's name, demanding he take responsibility. She even threatened to sue both of us if he didn't. The videos spread quickly. The internet buzzed with speculation, and some people even began digging into my background, frowning in frustration. I was just about to react when Anthony walked over and wordlessly took my phone away. "Starting tomorrow, you're on vacation. We're going hiking." I didn't even get a chance to respond. Anthony had already made all the preparations. When we finally reached the mountain peak together, looking out over the snow-covered landscape, I suddenly felt free. Love is never wrong. The mistake lies in those who betray it. Chapter 12. By the time I returned to the company, the drama had already died down. The landlord called me, saying someone had been sitting outside my door for 3 days. I rushed home only to find Michael crouched in front of my apartment, looking utterly broken. A small mountain of cigarette butts had formed on the ground. When he saw me, he scrambled to his feet, visibly flustered. "Charlotte," I frowned instinctively. "What do you want? Patricia didn't cause you any trouble, did she? I didn't expect her to go crazy like that." "Don't worry, I've already dealt with her. She won't bother you again." Michael spoke in an urgent rush. "But weren't you the cause of all this? None of it would have happened if not for you." I cut him off and shut the door in his face. From that day on, Michael began showing up around my place more and more. After work, I'd often find random things at my doorstep, sometimes flowers, sometimes handmade trinkets. I threw them all into the trash without exception. Another Christmas came. Anthony invited me out for dinner, and after getting ready, I headed out. But at the street corner, I didn't find Anthony, I found Patricia. The streets were nearly empty. A blaring car horn suddenly pierced the silence. I barely had time to react before I saw Patricia. eyes crazed, speeding straight toward me in a car. Charlotte, die. The headlights blinded me. In that moment of chaos, someone pushed me out of the way. A blur of crimson flooded my vision as I began to lose consciousness. When I woke up, I was already in the hospital. Anthony rushed to get the doctor as soon as he saw my eyes open. Only after confirming I was okay did he finally let out a sigh of relief. Once the doctor left, Anthony looked like he wanted to say something but hesitated. What happened to them? I asked calmly. Anthony paused, then replied, Michael died on the spot. She didn't make it either. I said nothing. Fragments of memory flickered through my mind like whispers. Charlotte. I'm sorry. Michael had murmured those words with his final breath. This ending felt inevitable. 8 years ago, he swore to the heavens. 8 years later, he finally paid the price for his betrayal. The day I was discharged, Anthony covered my eyes mysteriously. What are you doing? I grabbed his arm in surprise. A surprise, he said with a smile as he let go of his hands. I was rendered speechless by the sight in front of me. The living room was filled with red roses. At the center stood a tall Christmas tree, decorated with dozens of gift boxes. When I turned around, Anthony was already kneeling on one knee. He held my hand gently and pressed a solemn kiss to it. Charlotte, from now on, let me be the one to love you, will you? My eyes brimmed with tears, and without a moment's hesitation, I nodded. Yes, that Christmas, I was reborn.